pass or for a letter grade, depending on your needs. And the course itself is designed to be a one-on-one remote experience with the graduate student instructor. So you're meeting over Zoom, you're discussing readings that are germane to the protocols of the discipline you're studying. You are engaging in a professional work experience for ideally around 8 to 10 hours a week over the course of 8 to 10 weeks. So you accrue 80 to 100 hours of professional work experience. And then every other week, you're meeting with your graduate student instructor to talk about the readings, to prepare your research paper that is the capstone piece for the course, to talk about your professional experiences at your internship site, and to develop career skills alongside this graduate student instructor. And then the next slide gives you a sense of some of the courses that we have offered and will continue to offer. And Casey is going to be able to share a little bit more from the student's perspective about SES.
Yeah. So I am currently a political science and sociology double major. So like as awesome as it would have been to get upper division credit in either one of those courses, I didn't, and I instead took the community engagement and social change course, which has been a really great opportunity. It complements my internship really well, which is a criminal justice news media organization that I've been doing journalism for. And it provides a lot of resources to help you contextualize your internship. And then it also helps you do research, which is really useful for any like career pathways you want to take part in. And if you ever want to like take part in research in the future, you kind of already have a great body of work that you can already use. And then we also obviously have the rest of the course offerings listed here. So you can kind of choose whichever course complements your internship site the best.
Yeah, and in the chat, I've just gone ahead and put down the link to our course offerings. So you can see what quarters we're offering a course, and then eligibility requirements. So a lot of our courses are open to, whoever wants to take them, but a few of them do have requirements, such as being, a major or a minor, or having an internship related to a specific field. So this page really gives you a good overview before you even sign up for an intake appointment of what you might qualify for. And then the next slide will give you sort of a more concrete sense of student eligibility. So in addition to having sort of internship eligibility, in some cases, all students have to be eligible for the program. So you have to have at least 90 units completed at UCLA. So that gives you junior or senior standing. You have to have at least a 3.0. You have to be in good academic standing. And then international students, of course, have to fulfill their visa requirements, which they do through the DASHU Center. And so without those visa requirements, that cannot happen because we have to keep those sort of protocols at the uppermost. But these are, just the general student requirements. And for the most part, they are hard and fast. There are some exceptions for like case-by-case situations, but we ask that students have these as a minimum to sort of indicate to us that they would be able to handle the rigors of academic work alongside 80 to 100 hours of professional work. And then your internship site also has to fit certain criteria. So what we look for here is that students are able to work a minimum of 80 hours by the end of week 10, and that you were working at your internship site at least 8 out of the 10 weeks of the quarter. And these internships can be, remote, they can be in person, they can be hybrid, but we do ask that you are working with an off-campus workplace, so not a UCLA affiliated work site, that you have a supervisor of some sort, and that you are receiving a mentoring experience at your internship. You can go into a paid or an unpaid internship, and really those paid internships are really wonderful for our students when they can get them, but it's also okay if you are in an unpaid internship. And as I said before, they can be remote or in person or hybrid. But what you have to do in order to make that intake appointment is to secure that internship prior to starting the enrollment process. You can't sign up for an intake without having found an internship. And so when you meet with your graduate student instructor, that's the time we're going over, okay, does your internship satisfy our eligibility requirements? Does the student satisfy our student criteria? And if both of those are yes, and there's space in the course still, then we can proceed with enrollment. The next slide will show you some credit alternatives. Let's say you don't meet the requirements to get into a 195 CE, or the class that you want to take is filled. How can you still have a meaningful site work experience outside of 195? And so here are some other options. There's some fieldwork options with some majors. They have 185 courses. Other majors will have a departmental 195, and it doesn't have the CE designation, which stands for community engagement. So those are not run through the Center for Community Engagement. Those are separate to the department. There are research programs and courses you can do the 196 designation, but not all departments will offer these. So it's better to speak with your student affairs officer and get sort of a one-on-one personalized plan if that's the case for you. So what happens after you secure your internship? Or how do you go about the process, just in general? So we have outlined on our website, and I will put the link for that, just the step-by-step enrollment process for this. So you're going to have to find that internship, and then you're going to go online and you can go to our website and you can see these step-by-steps. But after you secure your internship, you're going to need to make an intake appointment. And so you do that through My UCLA. It's all self-scheduled. And we have 2 enrollment periods now. We have the quarter prior to the one you seek enrollment in. So like if you wanted to get into a fall quarter 195 CE, we're in an open enrollment period right now. So the last 3 weeks of the preceding quarter will always be open enrollment for the next quarter. So in this case, summer sessions, week 8 through 10, we're now enrolling for a fall quarter. And then of course, the first 2 weeks of the quarter in which you seek enrollment, we will also offer intake meetings. The issue is that these are on a rolling basis. So once the course is full, it's closed. And so if you can, get ahead of the curve, get ahead of the ball, and get your internship squared away, it would be better to do the earlier enrollment period. But if not, then there is a chance that you can still enroll during the quarter. It just may not be your first pick. It might be. It depends. And then everything is listed. All of the enrollment dates, the instructions are found on our enrollment page, which let me just link to it really quickly. And it goes over sort of in more detail requirements and links to like the DASHU Center, for example, if you are an international student. But yeah, you can see in the chat the enrollment page. It'll have the dates, it'll have, the step-by-step. There's an FAQ section. So like, let's say, for example, your internship wants to see proof of academic enrollment. We've had that come up before, and we have in the FAQ section, how do we get notice from the registrar that I have done what I needed to do to sign up in the course. And so it's all right there. It's a wonderful resource. We also have other internship resources on the next slide. You'll see some of these. So let's say you do want to get enrolled in a 195 CE course, but you have no idea how to secure an internship. There's some great resources here. The Career Center is a great resource. There are a number of places on UCLA's websites that sort of shows like past fields and past internship sites that students have worked at and found success. And we are building a resource webpage where we list sort of places that student interns have worked with in the past. But yeah, the Career Center is a great one. And Casey, do you have experience with how to find a good internship that you want to share?
Yeah, I did a lot of my research because I knew that I wanted to intern in something criminal justice related. Therefore, I did a lot of my research through actually the Data Justice Scholarship Program that I'm a part of, which is run by the Center for Community Engagement, because it had a lot of great resources on students who wanted to do data or car sale related research. I also used Handshake a good bit as well as LinkedIn. And then ultimately also word of mouth. My internship site, Davis Vanguard, recruits a lot of students across the UCs. So I was able to get in contact with some other students who had worked with them in the past. But definitely all of the above resources are very helpful. And like we mentioned before, the 195C email box is always open to students inquiring with more resources about where to find an ideal internship that fits their interests.
Yeah. And then the last page that we're going to go over just sort of recapitulates some of these resources. So if you have any questions after this presentation is over, you'll see the link to our website and then that college email account that you can always email with particular questions. But we can go ahead and stop screen share and open the floor to questions. So if you want to just unmute yourself, you can, or if you want to put your questions in the chat, I'll also be monitoring the chat. Okay, Max asks, if we take a 195 CE course as part of quarter in Washington, could we retake it a different quarter for credit? So yeah, that's a great question. I believe that you can retake 195 CE courses. In certain cases, you can retake the same course. Like I know disability studies, for example, has an option to take it for 2 quarters. Other courses, no. So like, for example, if you took English 195 CE, you can't retake it, but you could do political science 195 CE. So just because you take it 1 quarter, you can keep retaking 195 CEs in short. Does that answer your question? I'll keep going. Max, if that doesn't answer your question, feel free to follow up. Rafina asks, will I need to inform my supervisor that I will be using my internship to satisfy 195C? That's an excellent question. Your supervisor will know. I'm gonna speak to this on 2 counts. So your supervisor will know that you are using 195 CE for academic credit just for the simple reason that you need that supervisor's signature on the course contract and the learning agreement, and they will be signing off on your timesheet. In the past, it has happened that in some internship sites, they will try and offer you an either or option. Either you take this for academic credit or you get paid. I think that's not always the case, and it also seems sort of at the discretion of the employer, and it's not necessarily an ethical practice, let's say. This is me editorializing, but I think you as a student worker need to feel empowered to say that you want to do both if that's an option to you. Does that make sense? So that you want academic credit and you want to be paid if you can be paid. So always look out, try not to be presented with, if possible, with those either or options, because you can be paid as an intern. But yes, your supervisor will know about your need to be doing this for academic credit in some capacity, whether it's like your direct supervisor or the person who's in charge of, the issue of pay. Emma asks, is it okay if our internship starts before the quarter starts and is then longer than 10 weeks? Yes, that's fine. It's just your time card doesn't, the hours you're accruing don't account for before enrollment. So you have to be meeting at least 8 weeks during the quarter, even if you're working in advance of that, and you at least have to accrue 80 hours during that time of the quarter, and you can't count something from earlier, if that makes sense. Is there a place where we could access the slideshow in this recording? Thank you. I think the slideshow, to the best of my knowledge, is going to be available in some form I believe, and perhaps the recording. I don't know for sure. I was asked to record it, and I imagine that there may be a record of it in some way, but I can't speak to that for sure. If I am a sophomore and have received an internship that only accepts students who can get credit through their school, how can I get credit through the school if I don't meet the 195 CE requirements? Let's see. So I think in that case, that might be the alternative options we went over like in an earlier slide, because those may not, like the departments would sort of stipulate like what field work, what would constitute eligibility for field work, for example. But for 195 CE, you do have to have our student requirements, which is junior, senior standing. And so if that's the case, I would say just try and get to junior and senior standing as quickly as possible. If that is, something that you are able to do, and then go from there in enrolling in our 195 CE program. If not, there are, workarounds with your department. So I would say speak to your SAO. They are probably a better resource. How many spots are open in the 195 CE courses? Great question. So it depends. It depends on the enrollment appointment. So the appointment at which our GSIs are hired. So some courses will have lower caps. So like I'll speak again for English. It's historically been 15 students max. And then other classes where there has been historically more demand, like political science, will be capped at 30 students. There wouldn't be a way for you all knowing that though. So in that case, it would just be, yeah, I'm trying to think about what information you all have. Yeah, so in that case, I would say like you wouldn't know our enrollment caps. That would just be something that, when you're in your intake with your graduate student instructor, you can ask like, where am I, in terms of enrollment enrollment chances? Am I your like closer to, the 14th out of 15th student or the 29th out of 30th, or, how many spots left? And that's a fair question to ask, because you have to sort of plan your course loads accordingly too. So if you don't get into 195 CE, what else can you take? How's it determined which category your internship falls into? Oh, that's a great question. So the eligibility on the course offerings page will tell you. So some of them are very open-ended. For example, political science, any internship basically can enroll in a political science 195 CE versus something like music. I think music industry asks that your internship be related to music industry and also that you have a major or minor. So you'll see that information there. So if you, are in a very hyper-specific, you want to get into a hyper-specific 195 CE, then you're going to have more of a narrow requirement there that your internship will have to satisfy versus something that's open-ended. So there are, courses that you get to determine which 195 CE that your internship would be best served by. And it also depends on your interests too, right? So like it doesn't really have to be the case that the internship you take guides which 195 CE course. You could really be interested in, learning and applying an anthropological lens, for example, or the close reading lens of English. So yeah, so you can think about it that way too. Or, if you've heard good things about this graduate student instructor, that's a totally valid way of going about signing up for your courses. Let's see, are we assigned to the graduate student instructor or do we choose them? So the graduate student instructors are assigned to courses. So like if you take SESC, for example, for next quarter, you're going to be with Cassie, and that's all predetermined. Different graduate student. Okay, so somebody answered that. Let's see. For the supervision by professional staff mentoring requirement, can you explain more what this entails? Yeah, so what we ask for with that is that you, in that sense, we are asking that you have some sort of supervisor, that someone is guiding you along your internship process that, is developing you professionally outside of meeting with your graduate student instructor. So this is the person who gives you feedback, who is sort of giving you your job assignments, is professionalizing you in some capacity. We're not just like sending you to some random work site where, you're not accountable to anybody. So usually it's the person who's signing off on all of your forms and your time card. That person is going to be your supervisor. And ideally, this person will give you some sort of review of your work. At the end, they will orient you at the beginning. They will give you projects. And so it's up to you to sort of navigate that relationship and develop it. So, you can become, you can work on that a lot and make that a goal of yours, is to get really good professional development. Sometimes it works out that students are in internships where they don't care for the place of work or the supervisor or whatever. And then you just sort of have to keep up a professional relationship with this person. So that's also good work experience. So it depends on you as the student intern to, get the most that you can, or to sort of get through that part of it. It's just, like with any job, you're not always going to like the people you work with, or you might really like the people you work with. But yeah, at a minimum, it's some sort of meaningful professional development. Just to clarify, I'm currently doing an internship at UCLA Extension Writers Program, so I will be able to use that to select a 195 CE course. I think the answer to that one would be no, because this is a UCLA program. But you should also reach out to CM to make sure that that's the case. But based on sort of the information that's in this slideshow, it needs to be an off-campus place of work. And I think anything sort of connected to UCLA still has a tie to UCLA. Where can I find the list of available 195 CE courses? That's a great question. You can find that at this website under course offerings. And here's the link once again. There. And where on my UCLA do we sign up for intake appointments? So if you go to enrollment, it takes you, there's actually a video too on YouTube, but let's see, Casey can maybe go into more detail because she's actually done it.
Yeah, so like Susanna said, there is a YouTube video, which is really helpful, and it's linked on the enrollment page, which I can put in the chat right now. It has like a step-by-step guide to enrolling fully, and like how you do that on my UCLA. In order to make an intake appointment, I'm pretty sure in my UCLA, you go into like
Oh, I have the exact
scheduling.
steps here. I'll send it to you,
Perfect.
Casey, just for your reference. It's step 7.
But yeah, it's all like outlined on the website, and it's like very clear to follow. I am obviously in CESC, Community Engagement and Social Change 195 CE right now, and I enrolled earlier in the summer, and it was a really like clear cut process for me. So everything is outlined, and all you have to do is like follow the steps.
But just to sort of like to also point you to like the physical location on the website, it's under the academics tab. And so I can also share this with everyone. This is step 7. And it goes through step by step how to self-schedule. So you would go log on to my UCLA, look for that academics tab, and then you next select advising. And then if you qualify, you'll be able to see everything, every like sort of advisor appointment you can make. And if you internally through a software called Counselor Desktop, which sort of has all the student information, if that program sees that you have junior or senior standing and have the correct GPA, then it will list 195 CE intake as one of your options, and you would select it from there. And then you would go through the motions of like picking this GSI at this date and this time for that intake. Can you do the internship over the summer quarter? if you are enrolled in summer sessions, and so your internship has to be current for the quarter that you seek enrollment in. You can't retroactively apply like a summer internship to get fall 195 CE credit. The internship and the 195 CE course have to be happening simultaneously. Does that make sense? Okay, hopefully it did. And so, great. If there are any other questions, it would probably be best to, okay, last question. Are you notified immediately after your intake if you'll be allowed to enroll in 195 CE, or is that later on? If so, when? So Casey, how did you find out you were enrolled in 195 CE?
I'm pretty sure you get enrolled by the department, like Susanna explained, so long as you meet the eligibility requirements. I'm pretty sure you get enrolled automatically after your intake appointment.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what I meant by that was how you found out. So just to back up and to speak to how the process of enrollment works. It doesn't happen automatically. So you meet with your GSI and you do that intake, and then the GSI sends that information on to the SAO, and they usually do batch enrollments. So they'll wait till like a Friday of week, they'll probably do it like every Friday. And it'll be like Friday of week 8 and Friday of week 9 and Friday of week 10 and Friday of week 1 and definitely Friday of week 2 when they'll enroll everybody at once. But just in terms of you seeing that confirmation that you have been enrolled, I believe it will just appear on your My UCLA in your course, in your list of courses that you're enrolled in, which I think is, you just go to My UCLA and you see all your course schedule and your enrollment appointments, and then it'll tell you what units or what courses and how many units you've been enrolled in. They don't notify you if you don't get in, so that's where it comes in handy to sign up for enrollment appointments earlier, in case the spots fill up. But then also for you to check like your study lists on My UCLA. But I mean, your GSI should also tell you during the intake, like you have they'll be able to see based on their enrollment tracking, like where you sort of fall in the number of students. So it's odds are very good that you will get in because they usually don't do more enrollment appointments or intake appointments than they have availability for. But there are like cases in which it gets down to the wire where it's, this is a waitlist student, and they will probably tell you as such, like, I have reached my enrollment capacity, but you are number 1 on the wait list. Or have you considered, signing up for this other 195 CE course because mine is full? So you should feel free to like be in touch with your GSI about your chances of getting in, and also during the intake meeting being very, I've signed up this early, like, do you think I'm going to get in? And they should be able to tell you pretty, forthrightly. It's not a secret or anything. All right, well, if you have other questions, feel free to email, as Casey says. I keep wanting to call you Cassie. But thanks for coming, and hopefully a lot of you get into your 195 CE of choice. You can go ahead and